Hi, welcome everybody. If you haven't muted your microphone, please do so. We'll begin our virtual caregiver chat now. In the interest of time and the time that you all are dedicating, we want to get started and end on time for you today. I am Monica Sissel, and I am the Director of Information and Community Services with Central Plains Area Agency on Aging. We are very happy to have you here with us today at our virtual caregiver chat. This is the last event of the month. We have put together several different things throughout the month, with it being November as National Family Caregiver Month. And this is our final event, which will wrap up the time that we wanted to honor caregivers this month. So we provided several different resources online, some videos, some educational information, several articles and links. So I hope you have had a chance to check those out. If not, we do have several things left on our website and Facebook page that you can still access. We took this month, National Family Caregiver Month, to honor caregivers who support older adults. And to all that provide caregiving to either a friend, a loved one, neighbor, or someone that needs assistance, we are grateful to you. And I know there's several professionals on today, and we're also grateful to you and what you do for those older adults that you serve or provide assistance to. And today we want to share with you how you can find support to help you continue caregiving successfully and continue to take care of yourself. So today we have two experts on our virtual caregiver chat, and they are both individuals that work with caregivers and provide advice and support to help caregivers throughout their caregiver journey. First, you'll hear from Rhonda Custard, and she is with the Central Plains Area Agency on Aging. She is the caregiver coordinator. She assists caregivers by providing one-on-one support to them and to their families. She helps with the coordination of several different services, such as in-home services, respite care, caregiver transportation, and other services and educational needs. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Mandy Turner. She is a coordinator of the Caregiver Support Program at Prairie View Incorporated, as well as the group leader for the Caregiver Support Program, Caregiver Support Group meeting at Prairie View East office in Wichita. After we wrap up the presentation, we'll open up for questions from attendees and let our panel answer those questions. All right, well, we will get started with our panel. And I'd like to introduce Rhonda Custard.
Hi, everyone. As Monica stated, I am the caregiver coordinator for Central Plains Area Agency on Aging. And this month's theme for the National Family Caregiver Month is caregiving during crisis, or caregiving in crisis. And one of the things that we found out in this journey of caregiving is that it is a job that is placed upon many of us in what seems to be unseemly times. And then to add caregiving in crisis, in a pandemic, it makes things even that much more daunting. Well, I am the caregiver coordinator providing in-home services to you, the caregiver, to help you with this journey of caring for your loved one. What does it look like? It looks like this. It looks like personal care, assistance with bathing, dressing, attendant care that's needed to the special needs of walking with mobility issues, some homemaker services regarding meal prep, laundry and housekeeping, anything that will assist you with caring for yourself, which means you'll be able to care for your loved ones. One of the things before this Zoom meeting went on air was that I had to do what I ask everybody else to do, is step back, breathe, breathe again, and breathe again. because sometimes we're going as caregivers that we can't take the time to breathe. We're so busy, and we neglect ourselves. So it's vital for us to step back. It's vital for us to catch that breath wherever we can, to get that respite, going into the solitude of your bathroom and saying, okay, enough is enough. I need my world to stop just so I can take care of me. It's just that important. You are so important to that loved one that you're caring for, that even when they're calling your name, please come help me, they still need you to take care of you. So that's what I provide. I provide services that will help you as the caregiver on your journey. The place where I am located, once again, is Central Plains Area Agency on Aging. The call center, if you want to contact me, we have a call center number for you to reach out to me through the area agency. I'm saying it wrong, so watch this. Aging and Disability Resource Center, 855-200-2372. Now, that number right there can get you to a multitude of resources. As Monica stated, the next presenter, you can even contact her via using our Aging and Disability Resource Center. My caregiver program is able to offer you respite care, like I said, just taking a break for you, and caregiver transportation. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, which will get you to me to help you on your journey of caregiving. Thank you, Monica, for this opportunity to reach out to the caregivers within our community, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help them on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. And next, Dr. Mandy Turner with Prairie View Incorporated.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for offering this opportunity. I am the coordinator for the Caregiver Support Program at Prairie View, and we are a grant-funded program. We offer we have 3 different locations that provide monthly support group meetings, and so typically we meet at Newton. The West Wichita office or the East Wichita office is which is the location that I am at. Currently, we're all on Zoom for our support group meetings, so people have a little bit more flexibility in which meeting they choose to attend. So far, we've had there's been a little bit of difficulty in transition between the in-person and then the online version. A lot of people aren't exactly tech savvy or don't have the privacy or comfort of like attending the meetings at home, and some just don't have like the internet access and things like that. So I don't feel like we're quite reaching the same audience that we were initially, but we're kind of doing the best that we can. Our groups are information based, so we have a different topic every month, which is kind of decided on group members, and then we always offer time for caregivers to provide support and care to each other, bring up topics of interest to them, ask for assistance or whatever is needed. And it's one of the most recommended resources for caregivers in order to get through some of the, especially the later stages in caregiving, because it's an experience unlike any other, and there are so many situations that can bring about tension among, especially if it's a family member, and that having the support of other people that know what it's like to be a caregiver is really important. So that's one service we offer, is the monthly groups. We also offer up to 3 free individual sessions or family sessions, depending on what people need. I consider these more consultation, where we work to identify what the problem is, looking at it from like a solution-oriented aspect, look at what resources we can provide, and almost always it's very self-care focused. So teaching people how to put themselves first so that they can better manage the caregiving responsibilities. Okay, so I will post the number, and I think that we have a few ways to reach us. One is through our website, prairieview.org, but also through our admissions number, which I will put that here in a minute. So I wanted to go over the stages of caregiving, because one of the most common things that I hear from caregivers, I'm an intake clinician as well at Prairie View, so I sit down with people that are coming into our organization and get kind of background information, get them set up for therapy treatment. And quite often, I will hear someone talk about another family member or a friend, a spouse, that they've been providing some service to for a long time. And I'll say, "Oh, you're a caregiver." And their response is, "Oh, no, I'm not a caregiver. I just do this, this, and this." And it surprises them that that is what a caregiver does. Like it starts out with little things. So I want to kind of go over the stages of caregiving, so that even if you're not a caregiver, it really helps to kind of know what to look for, because our most common source of referral for our caregiver program are friends and family. People that are either had experience with caregiving themselves, or they recognize that this person is a caregiver and needs support. And so the more people who understand what it looks like to be a caregiver, the more people that we can potentially reach for assistance, okay? So the first stage of caregiving is the pre-caregiving stage. So this stage is quite often identified in retrospect. So as I mentioned before, it's things that people have been doing for quite a while, but they didn't really consider it to be quote unquote caregiving. So during this stage, there's some change in functioning in the older adult that elicits some need for assistance. Oftentimes the family is uncertain if there is a problem, and if so, how much should they be concerned about this problem? Is this a temporary thing? Is this a long-term thing? The caregiver may or may not self-identify as a caregiver and may not be fully aware of the amount of care that they are giving, or sometimes willing to acknowledge the amount of care that they're giving. It's not always easy to acknowledge that, especially a spouse or a parent is coming to the stage where they're needing this assistance. And then transitioning to caregiving, we see a lot of problems in this stage. Quite often, at some point, there is a problem, and it's at some point it's identified or diagnosed. Whether it's diagnosed or identified accurately is another story. But let's take, for example, like macular degeneration. Sometimes we see fluctuations in functioning. So not every chronic disease progresses in a straight line. Sometimes we have good days, sometimes we have bad days. And so if we don't know exactly what that progression is going to look like, we don't know what to expect. So fluctuations in functioning can be misleading. It's like one day, mom can make out details very clearly, but the next day, everything is in shadow. She can't even make out a person's face. So family members may blame the care recipient and withdraw assistance. For example, no longer reading to mom because she was able to do it yesterday. So without a good understanding of the disease process, caregivers can often make these mistakes. Often what happens as well is caregivers may blame a dispositional factor for the behavior that they're seeing. So instead of mom having macular degeneration, and sometimes there's too much light, sometimes there's not enough light, it might be seen as, well, mom's just being difficult. And so when you hear someone saying these things, oh, it's just mom being difficult, oh, it's just her personality, she's always had a short temper. Sometimes this can signal that there is a caregiver that doesn't have enough understanding of the process to know that, okay, so this is actually kind of part of the process. This is what to expect. And during that transition from caregiving to caregiving, there needs to be a rebalance of roles or shift in the direction of care. And sometimes we see problems there as well. So the wife becomes the decision maker, the son becomes the nurturer, and sometimes reversing roles is not always easy. So then the second stage of caregiving is the early caregiving stage. In this time, family members typically provide the majority of assistance. So if mom needs help with reading things, it's usually a family member that provides that assistance. And the focus is primarily on the instrumental activities of daily living. So these are things such as shopping, preparing food, managing financing, attending appointments, transportation to and from, and doing housekeeping. So not necessarily things for survival, but in order to remain independent, people need to do these things for themselves. So during this transition, there's a loss of autonomy, and it can be difficult for different people, for the care recipient. And another thing that can add to that difficulty is when the care recipient is unable to judge their own limitations. So that can create confusion and tension in the caregiver. Okay, so what do I do? I know that dad needs me to do this or that, but he doesn't want me to. So then how do I handle this? Once you get to the middle caregiving stage, the tasks that the caregiver is overtaking become more complex and involved. The ambiguities in the structure in like care recipient versus caregiver is cleared up because the functional limitations are much more obvious and difficult to ignore. You can't ignore dad's memory problems anymore because it's becoming dangerous. So at this point, family members tend to become more bold in decision making because the alternative would be dangerous for the care recipient to continue in that capacity. And it's really important to note that oftentimes family members need outside observers to show them how dangerous the situation has become. It's another thing that kind of sometimes will creep up on people because little changes are made every day. It's kind of like the frog in the pot. The frog doesn't realize the water is heating up because it does so gradually, and then the frog ends up being boiled, which I think is a horrible analogy, but very descriptive of the process. And then you get to the late caregiving stage, and these are often the late stages of chronic disease. They require almost complete care assistance. We're talking into the ADLs, the very basic functions like dressing, bathing, toileting, things like this. At this point, reliance on formal paid providers is pretty common. This might be the time when the care recipient is moved into assisted living facility or nursing care, or somebody is brought into the home on a full-time basis. So the family member's focus tends to shift to a care advocate or a service broker, and they carry the load for maintaining the relationship. So it becomes less hands-on, but still the caregiver is the one that has to put forth the effort in order to maintain that tie with the family member. And then towards the end of the late caregiving phase, the end of life care starts. The focus shifts from sustaining and lengthening life to sustaining quality of life until death. Okay. And then the last phase of the caregiving is the death of the older adult. Caregiving isn't quite done at this point. You still have family roles and relationships that are in flux without the care recipient present. So like an example is mom was always the one that brought everyone together for the holidays, and now that she's gone, who's going to take on that role? Some tasks to accomplish include planning memorials, sorting through and removing belongings from a senior living home, obtaining death certificates, distributing them to appropriate organizations, figuring out legal obligations, etc. And during this phase, there can be a lot more family conflict because the roles are changing, and the responsibility for who does what can shift. So the person providing the care isn't necessarily the one that's going to be making the decisions now that the person has passed away. And so that can create a lot of tension and unease in the family. So I would say like in a not so much typical, but when you think about the progress of aging, might think this as like a phase that slowly changes over time, but sometimes there's an abrupt illness that you might go from pre-caregiving to late stages very quickly. You might pass completely these early and middle stages, and so it's not just a straight line oftentimes, and you can even go back and forth. An abrupt illness comes up, might be preparing for end-of-life issues, and then they get better, and then you go back to not providing as much care as you were expecting. So, and in general, it's kind of a guide, but it's not black and white. It can look many different ways. So those are the basic stages in caregiving. I would open it up to questions. Anyone who has any questions over what I went over, or Rhonda, quite willing to answer as many questions as you have.
I'll get this started. I know often family dynamics can impact caregiving and bring up some caregiving issues. What kind of advice do you have to people who have maybe multiple siblings or cousins or others that they may be having conflicts with, or sibling disagreements or something like that?
Which is actually really common. There are different ways. Families have their own ways of kind of deciding who the caregiver might be. Sometimes it's put on the oldest, or maybe there's one family member who is a nurse or in the medical profession, and so they're kind of seen as like the most knowledgeable about how to provide the caregiving services. But sometimes it's not. It's the family doesn't have like a go-to person, and sometimes that go-to person doesn't want to do it. So there's a lot of sources for conflict in families when it comes to caregiving. So the best advice that I have is, if you have gotten to a stage where the conflict in the family is interfering with the care recipient's care, then seek help from an outside person. You can, we provide consultation services. We work with families. We can work with individuals. If you have a therapist, Family therapy can also be helpful too, if you feel like you need more long-term help. But don't be afraid to bring in an outside perspective and somebody that can kind of help with mediating communication, getting everybody on the same page, and trying to help make decisions in a way that is good for the family. So that would be like the best advice that I can give.
Great, great advice. Thank you. And Rhonda, I think I'd like to hear, or I'd like to see you share a little bit about how you provide assistance, what you do when you first meet a caregiver who is requesting your support.
So one of the first things that I do with caregivers is find out their exact need. One of the things that I found out is that a lot of times they may not need the actual caregiver's in-home services support. They may need just some direction as to how to best handle what's going on. Sometimes it's due to the family member not, their physical or mental state may not be as bad off as the caregiver believes, and they think that they can handle it. So what I try to do is assess exactly what it is that they need. What was the reason that they were referred to the caregiver support program, to try to help them meet the need. And then I give them referrals. So thank you for asking that question. What I didn't say earlier was this. I also do referrals to the individual and group counseling for caregivers that are just pretty much spent and don't know where to go with everything that's going on in the home. Not COVID, just in the home, what they have to deal with. So after I assess what they need, then I share with them what I can provide as the program with the in-home services or respite, that companion piece that the caregiver may need, just so that they can step away, make it to their own doctor's appointments, make it to a luncheon. Given COVID, it's the outdoor luncheon, or maybe going to the park, sitting there and just checking out. You know, when we say the word check out, it doesn't mean that you're mentally losing it all the time. It's just checking out from what's going on in your real world, so you can actually gather some peace and get that energy level back, so that you can go back into the home and be as effective as you can be. And then caregiver transportation. I've had caregivers that work a 9-to-5 job. They have to take off a half a day in order to get that loved one, leave the job, get the loved one to go home, get them dressed, get them to the doctor's appointment, then bring them back home, and then try to go back to work. Well, what I've strategized with a lot of caregivers is that I can help meet that need of getting them to the doctor's appointment and you just meeting them there. And then the caregiver transportation, can take them back home and you can go back to work. I know that that's helped out for a lot of our caregiver that's in need of that assistance with transportation, if their family members can be independent. The caregiver transportation also offers a companion to ride along with that care recipient if they can't be alone, or the caregiver doesn't have peace in knowing that once they get to the doctor's office, and I will raise my hand, that the most important thing to me at that time when I get there is being seen. Not all the time that everything that I've itemized that I need to talk to the doctor about is going to be addressed. So having that companion there to catch that information that's not always disseminated to the caregiver until like a week or two later, when that aha moment comes in, oh yeah, I meant to tell you, the doctor said. Having that companion there to pick up that piece of information is excellent, because they can give it to you right then and there. Or how about this? Technology is technology is technology. That companion can record the visit if the doctor says so. Most of the time they will, because they know someone needs that pertinent information. I did it with my husband when he was in the hospital. Well, my husband did it because I wasn't there and I needed the information. So because of what we're going through in this pandemic, there's a lot of pluses that we've had to embrace, whether we wanted to or not. But that in embracing them, it has assisted us in what we need as caregivers to continue. So, what else do we do? And resources, a plethora of resources. Actually, when caregivers are trying to assess whether or not their loved ones need to downsize or that next level of care, being able to say, okay, you may not be ready to move into a facility, but let's try this. Let's downsize from this 4-bedroom to maybe a duplex. Negotiations are always good, especially with my people. Persons age 60 and over, you're trying to tell them what to do. That really doesn't work. No. So if you can strategize with some options, making sure that you let them know that what they want and need is vitally important to you, it helps both of you on your journey.
Great, thank you. Great advice. And I do have a question in the chat from Amy. She asks, what can a caregiver do when the care recipient does not like anyone from the outside to help them, just the family caregivers? What kind of advice do you have, Dr. Turner?
Well, I love the question because it comes up a lot. And I think the number one rule to always remember in caregiving is autonomy of the care recipient is really important. So any decisions where you can involve them will make it more likely for them to make a decision that's better for everyone. So when discussing like the option to bring in outside help, there might be ways that you can negotiate to say, like either we bring in from somebody, either you choose who we bring in or I choose who we bring in. And it's kind of a forced choice, but it still provides them with some ability or some like feeling that they have some power in that situation. There are a lot of things that you could probably do. Like one might be to bring in an outside person on a very like short-term basis, like 15 minutes here or there, for them to get used to them. But I think number one is to find out what about bringing in outside help is a problem for them, and what can we then do in order to solve this problem, because part of the problem is also mom, dad, wife, husband, I'm getting overwhelmed. This is too much. I need help. So your self-care needs to come first as well. Self-care of the caregiver, autonomy of the care recipient, but we need to find a good balance between the two. So there's a lot of things that you could do, but generally speaking, figuring out why would be the number one way to figure out a way to then get around that that decision not to bring in outside help.
Great, thank you. I know a lot of people struggle with that. So with caregiving and a person's need for care or assistance comes some loss. There's loss for caregivers, maybe time that they have to spend now doing these caregiver duties. Maybe they're unable to do other things that they normally would enjoy, or be with grandchildren, or participate in other community activities. But there's also loss that care recipient has. Maybe they're not used to somebody having to do that level of care. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. The loss of autonomy. I don't know anyone who willingly accepts the aging process without some level of angst. Because part of it is, it does feel like we're returning to a state of childlike, the no longer having the abilities to do a lot of things that we did in the past, no longer being able to, in some cases, make our decisions on our own, no longer being in control of our finances, sometimes even moving out of your home. There's a lot of things that the care recipient can potentially lose. And it's not something that it's not exactly something that we can stop happening. But what we can do is to provide as much understanding and empathy as we can, and get it out in the open. And, you know, if there seems to be, like we were talking about, bringing in outside help, if it seems to be something related to, you know, like that makes me feel weak. You know, I've always been able to take care of myself. I've never needed help. To be able to say, you know what, I know. And it's really important for you to feel like you can do these things on your own. And, you know, and you're feeling really weak right now. And to say, you know, that's okay. This is really hard. This is hard for all of us. You know, I don't want to have to bring somebody in. You know, that's not my choice. It's not what I want for you. At the same time, like this and this, like this is something that we need, and we need it so that you're healthy, and we need it so that you're safe. And we also need it so that I can rest, and I can be a nicer person when I'm around you, because that's really important to me, that when we're together, that I'm rested and I'm in a much better mood, right? So there are ways that we can talk about the loss and help increase understanding and acceptance. It's really just being able to talk about it openly and lovingly. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay, Mandy, I have one for you.
Sure.
A 37-year-old, okay, and her 31-year-old sister, two females. They cared for their mother, who was 62 when she passed back in late July. Their grandmother is 80, and their mom was a caregiver. Okay.
Yeah.
Their mom has a little sister that lives with the grandmother and has a set of twins that are 21. You tracking? You following me so far?
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
That little sister, okay, that's living with the mom, that's 80 years old, has a diagnosis of colon cancer, went into the liver and the bladder. She initially only told the older twin. The family as a whole just found out officially Saturday. Now, the sister that passed late July, her eldest daughter is being looked at to provide care for the grandma and the aunt.
Okay.
What advice would you give to extended family to wraparound services? Because they're still going through the process of their mother dying.
Yeah. And so
yeah,
this has been thrust upon them.
Right. Literally. So now I'm the aunt to those nieces. Okay. Their dad was my brother. And the oldest girl is now in a position. She's being told she needs to access DPOA. And there's another aunt that lives in Colorado. But because of COVID, she hasn't been anywhere. And now this is being thrusted upon our niece. The grandmother doesn't know how severe this is. And all I've been trying to do as an outside caregiver, right?
Yeah.
Is to support the caregiver, and so it's something when it's in your neighborhood
Yeah.
and you're trying your best to help with resources and you separate the tie of professional
Right.
and personal.
Well, I'm
And
guessing
so
I'm guessing that
go
they have been providing care in some capacity this entire time. If their mother was the caregiver for grandma and
right.
aunt, they have been providing care this whole time. Is she wanting to be the primary caregiver?
No,
No.
that's
Okay.
the problem. The only person, like my younger niece, the 31-year-old, she said, no, absolutely not. I'm not involved, period. Mom and dad spent their lives taking care of other people. We took care of dad and mom. Neither one of them are here now. I'm good. So my older niece is the one.
So
And she
she's the one
doesn't
getting
really
pressure.
know what. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm trying to, that's a task, trying to be neutral right there and yet provide her support. I'm there for her, but how trying to navigate. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give the niece, and what would you give to Rhonda as an outside caregiver who cares about all these people involved?
Well, it sounds like, and maybe this has been done, but that she needs to make her wishes known, that she does not wish to be the primary caregiver. And you mentioned something about the extended family and wraparound services. Is there somebody that's keeping wraparound services from coming in?
No. It's just that the aunt in Colorado provides financial support. Now I did share about a set of twins that are 21. They're in college. And there's some mental health challenges there. So my niece, because of her parents, they took care of the mother of the twins while she was pregnant, and when the twins came here, they lived with them. So my niece is compelled with her cousins to do something.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot for one person.
Did I say she was 36, 37, somewhere in there?
Yeah,
young. Three kids.
Yeah. She's in I think they call it the sandwich generation, where
Absolutely.
she has someone in the generation or two above her, and then she's also still caring for her own children. So that in itself creates its own complicated matters. So my advice to her would be she needs to make the decision and she needs to stick with it, just like her younger sister did. She said no, and that's that. It sounds like there are other family members that are involved. And I also look at the culture. Is it kind of like accepted in the family culture or in the broader culture that like the oldest female family member is the caregiver? Like what all is leading the extended family to focus on her as a caregiver. And I think that's something that you can kind of look at as an outsider, like, okay, so who are all the players here? Where is the pressure coming from? How is she being defined as like the one? That's a lot.
Right.
That sounds like at least probably 3 or 4 caregivers needed there in that situation. That's way too much for her to take on.
You actually gave me, without knowing, between you and my husband, gave me some permissions that I'm getting ready to overstep my bounds on behalf of my brother and my nieces. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because my sister-in-law has sisters. Yeah, that can help their baby sister.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. I appreciate that. That's a lot.
I hate to interrupt this dynamic conversation, but you know, Rhonda brings up a great point, how complicated these situations can get. And the more people you have involved, the more complicated they can get. And I think an important thing that people who are tuning in to this should know is that Central Plains Area Agency on Aging and Prairie View Inc., we're here to help support caregivers. We're here to talk through these complicated issues. They can call that number that Rhonda gave earlier, 855-200-2372, and speak to Rhonda or an options counselor about what their options are, and certainly connect with Dr. Turner and her colleagues at Prairie View for caregiver counseling or caregiver support groups. And I want to thank both of you, Rhonda and Dr. Turner, for participating today. This is some great conversation, and I know we probably could come up with lots of other scenarios and questions for you, but in the interest of time, we'll keep this at just over 45 minutes. And thank you both for taking the time today. And thank you for those of you who tuned in today for taking time out for yourself to learn to take care of yourself and regenerate so you can continue to be a successful caregiver. Please let us know if you need any help. And any last words, Rhonda or Mandy?
Call the ADRC number. Oh, sorry, that was an acronym. Aging and Disability Resource Center. Aging and Disability Resource Center.
Thank you. We're here when you need us.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say that. We are here. We are here for you.
Yes. You don't have to do this alone. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful Monday. And hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy this beautiful sunny day.